Okay.
This is JJ Pianchi of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign interviewing Rebecca Spennetta on August 16th, 2017 at the University Library. Where and when were you born?
Joliet, Illinois on June 5th, 1980.
Who are or were your parents, and what are or were their occupations?
My mother is Mary Ann Baker. My father is Jerry Baker. My mom was an English teacher for 8th grade, and my dad did heating and air conditioning.
Do you have any siblings?
I do, an older brother, Josh. He's 16 months older than me.
Did he serve in the military as well?
No.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
How far back? I was, typical, went through school, did 2 semesters here at the University of Illinois, decided I wasn't quite ready for school, and enlisted in April of 99 and left for boot camp in May of 99.
Okay. And which branch of the military were you in?
The Marine Corps.
Okay. So why did you choose the Marine Corps?
My brother, while he did not serve formally, he was in Naval ROTC here also at the University of Illinois, and he introduced me to a woman who was an assistant Marine officer instructor whose office was over in the Armory. She was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, got me interested in joining the Marine Corps. My father had been in the Marine Corps, my cousin was in the Marine Corps. My brother I thought was going to go into the Marine Corps, so I didn't even look at anything. So that's why. Family, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Lack of...
Once a Marine, always Marine.
Well, and lack of an informed decision.
What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
Oh my goodness. I remember I drove down to St. Louis MEPS, the Military Enlistment Processing Center, with my parents, and my dad cried. That's, I think, the only time I've seen him cry. They dropped me off in St. Louis, and I stayed at the hotel that night and left for boot camp the next morning. Flew into Columbia, South Carolina to be bused to Parris Island, South Carolina. That was in May, so it was pretty hot there already. Hot, humid. It was kind of a whirlwind. I'm sure you've heard that already. Maybe this is a funny story. The last song I heard on the bus was "Do You Think I'm Sexy" from Rod Stewart. And that song was stuck in my mind for the next 3 months because we couldn't listen to anything. Every time I would get yelled at, it was just the internal dialogue was Rod Stewart serenading me. Do you think I'm sexy? Yes, of course. Only me this would happen to. I remember a lot of yelling, getting our gear. It was like we got to Parris Island at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We didn't go to bed until the following night at 9 p.m. I believe. So we were up for however many hours. Just the adrenaline and the excitement was overwhelming. The fear was overwhelming, being yelled at and unbelievable. A lot of what the heck am I doing? But yeah.
Did you think, during that, initial night and the days immediately after, did you think I've made a terrible mistake?
No, I thought this is where I need to be. I said I'm going to do it. I just had committed in my mind weeks before that I was going to do it. So there was no question. It was just kind of what was said to me was what I was going to do, almost without examination of the situation or kind of like a step back, look around and see what I'm doing. It was just keep going, just push forward and keep going and doing.
Yeah. Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Our senior drill instructor, this woman was like kind of she was like a beauty queen, kind of. If you mixed a beauty queen with like a warrior princess, that was our senior drill instructor. She was kind of like the role of mommy, but tough also, so you could go to her with issues, but she wasn't the nicest person either. Then we had Staff Sergeant Lawton, we had Sergeant Sheepers Creepers. I can see her face, but I can't remember what her name was. Mean.
Sergeant Mean.
Sergeant Mean. We had Sergeant Cash. She sang the best cadence ever. She was tough too. And she always smelled like Calvin Klein Obsession and cigarettes. And then Staff Sergeant Ayu, or Sergeant Ayu, Ahyu is how you spelled her name. She was tough too. I mean, they were all tough, but I mean, as the weeks went on, we kind of saw more glimpses of their personality, and they were kind of cool at the end, but mostly they were just really tough, and it was, I mean, I couldn't see very many personality differences between between any of them as we went on.
What's an example of being tough?
Let's see. We would get in trouble for, one gal tore a page out of the logbook and to write a letter to her boyfriend during boot camp. So we had these huge sandboxes behind the squad bay where we, it was kind of like our dormitory. So the drill instructor put all of us in there. Maybe there was like 80 of us, and put all of us in there, and we had to do push-ups while the girl read this letter to all of us. So it was a lot of physical exercise as punishment or remediation. We weren't sworn at or called names other than yoo-hoo, hey yoo-hoo, a lot of snapping and pointing. If we couldn't say our little scripted, good morning, ma'am, excuse recruit Baker, drill instructor, Sergeant Cash, ma'am. I mean, it was like this whole 3 sentences you had to say as fast as you could, and if you couldn't rattle it off, they were like, go away, get out of my face. I mean, if you had to pee real bad, you better be able to say it quick and succinctly and clearly. Otherwise, you may pee your pants. And some girls did. That was the funny thing. So, I mean, I think it was just his conditioning of getting us to not think about following rules and following just the way of doing without asking why necessarily for the sake of messing with us. But there was I don't think it was cruel mean. It was more like discipline mean for training. It never felt like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. Now I think it's hilarious, to be honest. Gosh.
But the 19-year-old you is all like, ah!
And this is so exciting and so scary and so, why? Yeah.
Did you receive any specialized training, and if so, in what?
Not outside of being a basically trained Marine. I mean, I went through the 13 weeks of boot camp, then MCT, Marine Combat Training, which was 17 days in Camp Geiger, North Carolina, where we dug foxholes and pretended to, assault other squads of people. For lack of a better term, I can't remember what we called them. Night land navigation was fun. It's more like stumbling around in the woods in the dark. Roll your ankle 1,000 times, After that, I went to school for my job, which was an aviation mechanic on airframes. So kind of like body work on cars. I did that on C-130s and F-18s. So I guess you could consider that. I don't know if that's what you consider specialized or not.
Sure.
Sure.
How long was mechanic training?
It started in, let's see, I got done in that, I think it started in beginning of November, and I was finished by Christmas time because I got to my first duty station in Miramar in January. I remember like the New Year's time that they had off, they had 96 hours off, and I had to wait for whatever.
Nice. How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
It was like college. The last two, the 2 semesters before, it was really similar. People like to drink, people like to party, people like to hang out. I suppose that I was also growing up, I was a goody-goody. I did what I was told to do and didn't ask too many questions, just kind of, if somebody asked me to do something, I'm gonna do it. Barracks life, it's like having a roommate in college for me. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want a roommate, but food, I didn't like eating in the chow hall with everybody. I don't know if I was just like socially anxious or whatever, but I'm like, everybody's looking at me, and I didn't like that. I don't know, that's probably just my own little weird, whatever, not shortcoming, but I forgot what you call those. Quirks. Yeah.
Where were you stationed?
San Diego, California, at Miramar. Top Gun. Woo. So stupid.
Did you go abroad?
I did. I went to Japan in 2001 from March to September of 2001, and then I went to Kuwait in 2003 from January to May.
So what were some of your memories of Japan?
I was afraid to leave the base for the first month.
Where in Japan were you?
I was in Iwakuni, which was on the main island, about an hour north of Hiroshima. So it was kind of like a smaller farming community with a base right there, with an airstrip and hangars and all that stuff. The base was a decent size. It wasn't like we were out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere. We could look outside the base fence and see people and like the Japanese nationals that lived there. Right outside the gate there was like this street. It's the same thing if you were to go to like Cherry Point or Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's all like strip clubs and bars and pawn shops and just seedy, but of course that's where we hung out. Right there. So Japan though, yeah, I was afraid to leave the base for like the first month. I was just intimidated by the language barrier. Am I going to get lost? Who am I going to go with? What's this money exchange from dollars to yen? I had no idea. So a guy that was his permanent duty station. He'd been there for a year already. We worked together, and he and a couple of friends and I went out in town, and I thought, this is crazy. But really, it's just so different than anything I was used to here. Like the roads are so narrow, and 2 cars fit on them somehow. I don't know. It was exciting and just unlike anything I thought anyone else that I went to school with was doing. So.
What about the other place, Kuwait?
Oh, Kuwait, it was probably the loneliest place I've ever been. There were, thousands of us on the base, but it was like everybody had this same look in their faces that they'd rather be somewhere else. And it was, just the loneliness was, to me, it was palpable. And it was a dry base, so people couldn't ameliorate their sorrow with booze. But
If people couldn't use booze as a sort of a great social equalizer, what do they do instead?
Some of them made their own booze. Some, I'm serious. So I don't know how well it worked out. I never got the follow up on it, but they'd have it sent to them sometimes, or just deal with it. I mean, it was kind of you know, it wasn't just like we were there as like a general rotation of, you know, like a regularly scheduled deployment. It was, I mean, the shock and awe campaign went on, and we were flying all these planes out of there right at the end of March, and yeah, just really different. And I remember the sky. I mean, being in the Midwest, you think the sky is really big. The desert is where it's bigger. I mean, it's like you see, like it's almost like the land is flat here, but it's almost like, I don't know what the concave, whatever. It's like more sky, and it's just barren and desolate, and you can see the pipes with the flames coming out where the oil fields are, and it's just the old Kuwaiti hangars where Desert Storm, they were bombed in and never repaired or taken down. It was surreal in a way, but it was almost like, it was cool because it was kind of movie-ish, like we're living in a movie, look at us. So like the whole gravity of the situation it never really struck me, I suppose, over there.
Other memories of over there? Anything stick out?
Yeah, I mean, the living situation was not ideal. We had about 14 or 15 women in a tent, and I mean the tensions got pretty high sometimes, and you know I guess I don't have a sister, but I could imagine it was fighting like sisters, but with I guess a little bit more lethal training, so people were not so shy about how they were going to express their anger. It wasn't quite as civilized in some ways. I mean, it was humorous, but it was like understandable too. I mean, none of us really wanted to necessarily be there in that situation, and we just took it out on each other sometimes. So I remember one girl, she had like waist long hair too, and she got lice, and I had really short hair, so I helped her, you know, get these 2 tubes of whatever, the lice cream, and combed it through her hair. It probably took like 6 hours to do that, maybe 4, I don't know. So I delivered the mail when I was there too. That was my primary job. It was to go get the mail off of with several other people, maybe 15, 25 other people, get the mail off of the semi-trucks, which maybe 2 or 3 would come every day, and pull it off there, sort it out, sort it by who's on my mail route, so to speak, in my unit, and deliver it to them every day. And I loved it and I hated it, because it was like people lived and died sometimes by receiving a letter from home, or you know, maybe their box with booze in it had broken and it totally reeked, and it was just like this little lifeline to what we all considered like reality. We were kind of almost like floating up in space, where it's just this surreal experience, and the mail was this, like I said, this lifeline back to real life. People thought I hid the mail from them too. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if they really thought that now that I kind of think about it. But, I mean, they would get angry if they didn't have a letter. And understandably, but I certainly wasn't hiding it.
So this was in addition to doing the mechanic airframe thing?
That was my primary job in San Diego. So in the States, that's what I did. When I went to Kuwait, I deployed with the job of kind of being an extra help person. And when I got there, I was assigned to the mailroom.
Yeah. What did you do in Japan?
I worked as, it was called AMSU, AMSU was the acronym, and it was like the middleman between the squadron level and the intermediate maintenance level. So kind of like the squadron in the shop, I was where the squadron would drop gear off, and then the maintenance shop would come pick it up, and I was just kind of like
shuffling it back and forth.
Exactly, and keeping serial numbers straight and all that stuff, so I don't know.
So you didn't work a lot of the airframes?
No. Well, when I got for about 2 years I did. I was the only female in my shop, which I think it taught being, let me see, the Marine Corps, and being the only female in your shop it was tough, I think. I don't know if they knew how to quite react to me when I got there, but they learned to, and some of them liked me and some of them didn't, and I think that's just the way that it was. So I don't know that it was personal in all ways. Maybe sometimes somebody didn't like me because of my personality. Maybe they didn't like me because I was a woman. Maybe they liked me because I was a woman and hated my who knows? I have no idea. But yeah, I did airframes for a little while, like 2 years. Went to Japan, did AMSU. When I got back, I worked for the maintenance chief as the training NCO. So I coordinated and scheduled and tracked all the training for our department. It was about 350 people, Marines, and then reported that to the maintenance officer and my boss, and then I went to Kuwait and did the mail, and when we were done there, when we came back, I went back to work for the maintenance chief. So that was kind of my, I don't know, a linear trajectory of my jobs in the service.
Woo! There you go. But you were never on front lines or any combat action?
Mm-hmm. Okay. No.
What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
What do you mean with whom? Like people my age, other women?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
All of the above.
Okay. I made friends with the majority of people that were in my unit. So, I mean, the people that I came into contact with, and the majority of them were men, just statistically speaking, there were just a lot more dudes. One of the other, I was in the airframe shop, and there was another girl in the hydraulic shop, and we were in the same, the same division, but she was in a different shop, and we had gone to boot camp together, and when I knew she was coming to San Diego, I was like, yeah, I'm in. We were so excited. We had gone to school together, and I still talk with her. I mean, Facebook really keeps a lot of us connected. I don't keep tabs on when everybody's birthday is, or what city they're living in, or whether they went to college or not. But there are a few people either that I feel like I got closer to because they were like her. We went to boot camp together and started. Or there was another guy that was from Chicago. So, I mean, we kind of bonded on that. The guy that I worked for, the maintenance chief, he and I still talk. My old boss that really, I feel like he was kind of like a father figure in some ways. He looked out for me, but then said, hey, Baker, you gotta, fix this. You can't come in, hungover or something like that. You know, he'd call me on my crap if I was messing up. But so I guess the majority of the folks that I made friends with were peers and people about my age in the job that I worked in, or at least the department, the division. I still have some contact with some of the people that were in charge of me. It's kind of funny how those friendships have evolved now that I don't have to answer to them anymore. I could say, well, what the hell was going on with, so-and-so, or, were they dating, who they shouldn't have been, or, I don't know.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Phone or email or letters, but it was a lot easier. When I was in San Diego, I would just call home. I think I got my first cell phone in 2000. Which, kids get them in like first grade now, and I'm like, gosh, whoa. I would call home, just a phone call when I was in the desert. There was a phone thing I could call maybe every week or every 2 weeks. Email, if I was in somebody's shop delivering the mail and shooting the shit with them, I'd get on their computer and, send an email home. But letters, a lot of letters too. I'd get, when I lived in the States, I'd visit, fly home for leave and see them. But I didn't keep in touch with a lot of people that I went to high school with, and still really don't. They're all still there doing the same stuff.
What did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
Drink.
Anything else?
That was really like the number one thing that we did. We'd hang out, barbecue, go to the beach, and there was always drinking. We'd go to clubs, drink, barbecue, drink, beach, drink, barracks party, drink. And it was just, every night was a Saturday night. It didn't matter if you had an inspection the next morning, you were getting, tossed, blotto, whatever it is, the night before. If you have to do a physical fitness test in the morning, it didn't matter, you're rum and coke powered. It didn't matter. It just, I learned to drink like a 250-pound, 6'2" man. I really did. Which, I think it was just kind of the way that it was, at least in the unit that I was in and the time I was in. I think there was something kind of, maybe stereotypical about the military and beer and booze in general. We go to movies sometimes, concerts. But by and large, drinking.
So how did that work out when you were at a dry camp? When you were in Kuwait?
Well, you mean for me personally or for just everybody? People would have it sent to them. Or they would bury juice boxes from a chow hall tent in the ground and see what happened, roll the dice. Not me. Or they just sucked it up and whatever.
When you were in the service, did you read for pleasure, and if so, what?
No.
What particular book would you say influenced your life the most, and why?
Ever?
Ever.
A Million Little Pieces really kind of sticks out. You know which book I'm talking about? Yeah. I think I read that in the early to mid 2000s. It was like right after that whole Oprah thing. And I was like, I gotta read this. I gotta figure out what this is about. That one sticks out to me. Until that point, I hadn't read anything that really, other than assigned reading for school, that's still, Animal Farm, though, that was a good one. That's just a story, not necessarily a book. Anyway, Yeah, so Animal Farm in a Million Little Pieces. Was there a why component to this question?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think parts of the Million Little Pieces, I think the visceral description that he gives through words was a lot of things that I felt, and I mean, just the drinking, the substance abuse. For me, it was just drinking, but I mean, it was really like somebody knew what I was feeling and thinking and understood, and I remember just reading the way that he had written without punctuation, and it was just like this flow of thoughts, and I'd have those types of thoughts, and I was like, wow, this is really cool that somebody's, it's not necessarily all grammatically correct, but it totally makes sense to me. The thing about Animal Farm that I really liked, I read that I think when I was a sophomore or junior in high school, was I think just the interpretation. That was really like one of the first things I read that I could see the meaning behind it, and it wasn't a story about a farm. It really was not. And just I don't know, like the realization that it was, I don't necessarily have the words to describe what it is in technical or academic terms, but just that he was describing society and just using this completely not inane, but maybe docile picture, and then it turned really sinister at the end, and it just, I don't know, that's kind of when I guess got more discerning about what I was reading, like, ooh, I want to read something like that. I don't want to read like, I don't know, Ender's Game was good, I suppose, but can you believe I read Ender's Game? Neither can I.
Did you use libraries when you were in the service? Why or why not?
No. I wasn't interested in anything. Reading for pleasure, I wasn't interested in going to school when I was in, so no.
How did you return home?
I drove.
From San Diego?
Yes. I had a little blue Corolla, and it was jam-packed. I mean, there was room for me. Can you see me getting into the car? And that's it. And like I had like a cup holder with like snacks and food, and just drove. We probably took, did I stay 2 nights places on the way? I don't know, 1 or 2. But yeah, I just drove home, got back to Piatone. Let's see, I think I left on a Wednesday. I got home on maybe a Tuesday, I don't know. I want to say I got home on like a Thursday or Friday, signed up for classes at KCC, and I, don't ask me why, started a math class Saturday mornings that very stinking week. Like, I hadn't even been home 7 days, and I'm like into school already. So,
Okay.
algebra at 8 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, 8 to 12, 4 hours. I'm like, is this like math for Marines? No, it's not. But I mean, I was just used to like this totally unconventional schedule of doing things. So I thought, why not? I mean, so I did.
Okay. How were you received by your family and community when you came back?
My family was, I think my folks were happy to have me home. They were really concerned as to why I was drinking so much. But I lived with my parents for a year, so like August to June the following year. They knew they were proud that I was going to school, concerned that I was drinking so much, swearing, kind of continuing the lifestyle that I had in the military in Little Piatone, Illinois, 3,000 people, whoa. So I didn't see a whole lot of other people. I suppose. I mean, they were kind of like, hey, hey, how you doing? And fine. And I feel like I just reassimilated right back into the way things had always been.
So, I mean, this next question is, how did you readjust to civilian life? How would you say that you readjusted? I mean, you said you continued drinking. Was that part of the adjustment to help you cope with adjustment? Or?
Yes, it was. I'm, believe it or not, shy, and I think alcohol just really helped me feel like I fit in, or feel like I could be the life of the party, or whatever. I remember going to school buzzed and half drunk and still getting, A's on tests and things like that I'm not necessarily proud of doing, but that's just, I was able to function to do that. Can you repeat the question one more time before
How did you readjust to civilian life?
Almost like I had committed to going to the service. I had committed to going to school. Like I honestly just said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do. And this is what I'm doing. There was no, oh, maybe I'll take a semester off. No. I was determined at that point that I wanted a degree because I could see the benefit in it. I didn't want to do 20 years in the military. I didn't want to go flip burgers somewhere. I didn't want to just start working. And the state was going to pay for my school and get the GI Bill, so why wouldn't I? My folks had always emphasized the importance of education and woo school. So, and I finally realized that to, my mother's relief. So it was, I think just keeping the momentum, I think just really helped. Probably starting school on that Saturday helped,
Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans, and if so, who?
Yes. I saw the man that I used to work for. He retired at 30 years in the Marine Corps. Yeah. Super nice. We went to a Cubs-Cardinals game. We were the only two Cubs fans there, I think. No, we weren't. But him, because he's from Chicago, still was up here visiting family, and we said, hey, well, let's get together and, talk about the old times. I had seen other people that had lived close by, that grew up in Chicago, especially when I had just gotten out. I saw my friend James, who lived in Chicago. When I went to Ohio for a conference, like an academic advising conference, I saw a gal that had been in the same squadron as me. She worked in supply, I worked in maintenance, but she lived in Cleveland, and I said, hey, let's hang out. And it was kind of weird, like we're just like it didn't necessarily feel forced to hang out, but it was kind of like the camaraderie wasn't quite still there. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
Mm-mm.
Okay. What have you done since separating from the military?
Went back to college, got a bachelor's degree in art history, a master's degree in college student personnel from Illinois State in 2007 and 2010, respectively. Worked as an academic advisor at Illinois State University until 2013. Left, got married, had a little boy, almost totally divorced, and started working here at the U of I in January in the School of Music.
Okay. As a veteran, have you ever used your local library? Why or why not?
No. I feel like grad school really ruined me of reading. No, and the accessibility on Kindle and Amazon to just get the book right there. Outside of research papers and things like that. Mm-mm.
As a veteran, are there programs or types of books available at the library that you enjoy more than others?
I don't know, because I don't really go to the library.
Okay.
Was that a trick question?
No. As a veteran, is there something that you wish you could change about the library that would enhance your enjoyment of it? No?
No.
Okay.
Well, no. Because that would be more like as a parent, but no.
How did your military or wartime experiences affect your life?
I hate fireworks. They scare the shit out of me. I'm probably easily startled. A lot of weird things, like I don't walk in the grass, because in boot camp we couldn't walk on the grass, so don't walk on the grass. I carry everything in my left hand still, even if, it's like 40 bags from the grocery store.
How come?
So we could salute with our right hand. We always had to, because, I'm going to salute today. It's just like ingrained. Just don't do it. What else?
You said you hated fireworks. Is that just associated with target practice, or was there times when the camp was under attack, or?
I never saw like an explosion on the base. When we were in the desert in Kuwait, these alarms would go off if something was sensed within a certain radius of the base or something. So we had to put on our MOP gear, our gas mask, and the whole NBC, nuclear biological chemical suit, and run to the bunker and just sit there until we got the all clear. We must have done that, 2 or 3 dozen times in 2 days. And so I don't know if it's just I guess the first time I noticed it was like 2005 or 6 maybe, 4th of July, and I was just out with a friend watching fireworks, and before I knew it, I'm just like bawling my eyes out and just scared to death. And after that, here's a funny story, not funny, but so I stay away from fireworks. My son and I he's 2. My son and I moved into a house June 15th. We closed and moved in, so July 4th, here it is. Mm-hmm. Well, I moved across the street from the man and his family who, I don't know what kind of fireworks these were, but I think they got them from like the Cannon store, because these were not bottle rockets. It was, at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, these things, I could feel the concussion of these things, and they were loud, and I'm like, okay, 1, my little baby boy is sleeping, like, and 2, no, this is scaring me, and I don't know. They're loud and bright and just too much. So I went outside and I said, hey, how many more of these do you have? And he's like, we got a whole bunch. We do these every year. And I'm like, well, shoot, next year I'm not coming. I'm not going to be home on July 4th if you're going to do this. So what got me was like when I walked back in the house and was putting the garage door down, he must have like just lit something when I turned around, because I felt like that thing flew into my garage and I just like crumpled onto the floor just sobbing. Mm-hmm. And it's like I don't know where it came from. I just don't like it at all. It's scary and just, yeah.
In part because it's just an almost knee-jerk reaction.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a jerk thing to do. I was pissed.
Yeah. What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
Don't punch people in the face.
Very valuable information.
Keep your hands to yourself. It goes along with it. I learned how to complain I suppose. And let me tell you about that. I learned that if you just simply complain to a boss or a supervisor or something, they're much less apt to listen to you if you don't provide a solution also. So if you were to say, well, this is the problem I'm having, here's a solution that I've come up with, can we talk about this or work it out? So otherwise it seems like people just shut down and don't hear what you're saying. You're just complaining. I learned that I don't have to be loud and mean to people to get them to do what I want them to do. I say a lot, I learned what I don't want to be like, and I learned what I did want to be like just in working with different people. I had a staff sergeant that said to me, people said all kinds of shitty stuff, but, and awesome stuff too. I have to, give both sides of the coin there, but I remember being the only female in my shop, the guys all got to change in the shop. There was like a special room for them to change, and they thought I was late walking, the 150 yards from the restroom to the shop because I put on my coveralls and not my my camis. And the staff sergeant said, "Baker, why are you late?" And I said, "Whoops, I'll get to the head a little faster and change." I said, "When are women going to get a changing room in the shop?" And he said, "When there are as many women in the Marine Corps as there are men, then you can get your own changing room." Well, we all know that's never going to happen, so, okay. I've forgotten what the question was again.
What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
That just because you work with somebody on the same team doesn't mean they will not steal from you or lie to you or cheat or all those things. That too. But there's many different ways to get things done, I think. So that's really kind of it. And how to fix planes, but that's not really a life lesson or anything I want to do again. Also why I don't fly.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
It has probably given me very unpopular views about the military. I love the military, and I think that it runs the way that it runs, even though it's very, what most people call racist, sexist, ageist, whatever. I don't think that the Marine Corps is for women necessarily in all cases. I don't think that women should be in the infantry. I don't think women should be on the front lines. I guess that's really it, I guess, and even with like the, what am I trying to think about here? I know the transgender people, there's all this hubbub about them now, but we knew who was gay and all that. We didn't give a shit. As long as you're there doing your job and not causing any trouble for anybody else, just like everybody else is supposed to, we didn't care. Mm-hmm. And I think that the news portrays these, gays in the military and don't ask, don't tell. We already know. You don't have to tell us. Don't give a shit. We honestly don't. At least I never, saw any, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. If anything, there was more intolerance of women than gays or blacks or Hispanics or Asian people or whatever. I think the military is kind of this, it's archaic in some ways. I think that it's progressive in other ways. I think it's it is the way that it is for a reason that we're not always supposed to understand necessarily, but I loved it though. I think overall. Can you tell me the question one more time? Sorry about that.
That's okay. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
War. The only thing I can really say is with what's going on in the Middle East, that if people who are from the Middle East, I mean, we've been training these people for 15 years, at least. If they had heart and loved their country the way Americans, some Americans, I think most Americans love their country and are would fight tooth and nail for their country, we wouldn't have to be over there. So I wish I knew all the reasons. You know, I wish it was just very transparent. Why are we there? What are we doing? But it's never going to be. So I almost don't try to figure it out or provide too many opinions.
You stated earlier that you felt that women shouldn't be in the infantry and or shouldn't be in combat. Any particular reason?
They're a distraction. Honestly, some of the women that I saw, there's two types of women in the military that I saw, the ones that are there for the men and the ones that are there for the job. And the former outweigh the latter in a lot of, well, that's not necessarily true. I think it could be a two-way street. The close proximity that is required, I think, of working in the infantry kind of provides an environment that gives a lot of distraction. I don't know that men and women would be able to keep the sexual aspect out of it and just focus on the job all the time. So, and we're just not as strong. I mean, women are just not as strong physically.
Okay. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear this interview?
That's a really good question.
Oh, if your son was going to hear this when he turned 18.
You're not going into the service.
Well, there you go. How come?
I don't know, it'd probably be better for him. I'm really thankful that I was able to go in because I'm proud that I served. For people who I think want to go in and serve their country of their own volition, explore the options, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. Know what you're getting into. But I think the military did a lot more for me than I ever did for it. I mean, I grew up, I matured a lot, and it helped me go to school. I mean, it helps me buy a house. It's a really great, for me, it's been a really great part of my life that I think about at least 5 times a week. Remembering something I did, or find myself doing something that I learned in boot camp, walking on the sidewalk. Everything in my left hand. I mean, the experience is just unparalleled. Just, the friendships and the stories. I mean, nobody does stupid shit like drunk Marines. Nobody. I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. So.
Is there anything you feel we haven't discussed or should be added to the interview, and if so, what?
No,
Okay.
not really.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Do you want to keep rolling on my way out?
Just don't say anything interesting from now.
What do people, I mean, I don't, I guess for the